What do your customers need to know? Hi, I'm Brian Pombo. Welcome back to Brian J. Pombo Live. Yesterday we talked about who you're going after, and what is the big deal about knowing who you're talking to, who you're trying to reach. So we talked about that a little bit yesterday. Go back and watch that video if you want a little bit of background on that and why it's so important when you're dealing with the customer process, why you got to start with who. Now with yourself, if you're talking about you and your business and your relationship with your business, you got to start with why. And there's a whole thing behind that. We talked about that a little bit yesterday too, but when you're talking about the customer experience, you start with who. You got to start with who your customer is first. You've got to know who that person is, and you got to keep going back to it, looking at it and saying, is this really who I should be focused on? Is this really, do I know this person well? And really getting to know them well over time. Now, the second part is what. And what is all about the message. So I've talked about this before. The three main things you need to know is what, is who, what, and then where and when, which comes down to your market, your message, and your media. Let's talk about the message a little bit, should we? It really comes down to, what do you want them to do? What do you want your customers to do? What do you want them to know? What is the action that you want them to perform? Is it to buy a product? Is it to take something free from you? Is it to give you their information so you could start a long-term relationship with them? What do you want them to do? Is it you want them to go check something out, to figure something out, to find something out, to ask themselves a specific question? What do you want them to do? That's where the message is. If you're making an offer, you're going to want that irresistible offer. You're going to want that unique selling proposition. They call it a USP. You're going to want that tied in with it. That's part of your message if that's what you want them to do. If you want them to buy something, you got to have something like that in there. But it all really comes down to, every time you sit down to put out a piece of advertising, to have a conversation with a prospective customer or client, you got to know what you're wanting them to do. And you got to take them from where they're at, the who they are, where they are, what they're thinking, and you got to take them over to what you want them to do. You got to help them make that connection. And it may not be the first time you talk to them. It may be time after time again. You may need repeating messages. You may need messages that play one right after the other. You may have to take them through a sequence. Like they say, the funnel. You got to take them through a funnel. That's quite possible. But you got to know what that is. And if you don't know the who, the what is going to be really difficult to craft. Your message is going to be extremely difficult to craft. But you can get better and better and better at that. And hopefully you already have a business. You have an idea of who you're playing to. You have an idea of what you want them to do. But you may have difficulty making that stretch from where they're at to where you want them in order for you to have a transaction happen. That's what business is all about. So we could talk about that a little bit more, but that is the main idea. If you understand to put the who before the what, that's going to be a huge piece of your battle. Most of the time, people start with the when and where. They start with the media. We're going to talk about that tomorrow, about what the media is and why you need to think and write out and map out the who and the what before you determine where and when you're going to contact them and have that conversation, whatever that conversation is. So I'm a business strategist. I work with businesses. I help them go through and map out plans to help take them to the next level. And specifically, I tend to work with business owners and with managers and the people running the business, executives and so forth. You're going to want to check out my 9 ways to Amazon proof your business. If you really want to find out a way to be able to beat out all the competition and to really make them completely irrelevant, go check out 9 ways to Amazon proof your business. You get a free copy at amazonproofbook.com. We'll be back here tomorrow. We have these on a regular basis, so I'll be back tomorrow, and we're going to cover the where and the when or otherwise known as the media. So come on back for that. You have a great night. In the meantime, get out there and let the magic happen.